Hello and welcome back to another tutorial. Today I am looking at vocal editing. I had a request to look at how to clean up different vocals. So what I've done is I've recorded just using my iPhone me talking and explaining what's going on in a whole heap of different physical locations. So I've also got some photos of each of those places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you back each one of these recordings, and then I'm going to keep the image up over here of what space that was in, so you can get a bit of a feel for what the environment was like. So let's have a look at our first one. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me, sitting inside a room in an open house with no consideration for soundproofing or reducing outside noise at all. Hey, here's... Cool, so you get a bit of a feel for it. It's a bit roomy. Let's compare it to the closer one in the same space. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before, inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters away from my phone microphone. Cool, so you can hear some definite plosives and things going on, but that doesn't mean we can't clean them up. Definitely a lot clearer recording if we A-B back and forth. Here's a recording inside a test recording of me space as before. It's a much bigger, stronger recording. The next one is in a closed bathroom, which looks like this. So all tiles, glass, just very reflective surfaces. So let's listen to that one. Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with tiles, mirrors, and glass reflecting the sound. Cool. So there's a lot going on in that one, a little weird reverb happening. Inside of a closet, I have this weird cupboard closet thing. It's got a whole heap of junk in it at the moment, but I just rested my phone on this little surface here and recorded speaking into this one. This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking. Cool. Another weird one. We've got laying on my bed, so relatively damp environment. I just put it on the bed and then lay down quite close to it. Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is dampened by my mattress and my quilt on top of it. I've also closed the windows so that there is less reflective sound inside this space. Okay, so we've got some stuff going on. And then outside in the backyard, I was just standing out near my back door. There's a few external outside sounds coming into this one as well. Here's me standing outside in my backyard, also about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze, there's some plants moving. I can hear some construction in the background. Definitely some stuff that would need cleaning up. Cool. Now underneath each of these, you can hear that there's this hum in my vocal recording at the moment, which is my fan going on in the background. I've just realized that I didn't actually add a gate to mine to reduce my background sound. So let's do that now, because this is going to be one of our first processes that we use. So I've got an EQ doing a little bit of cleaning up on my voice here, taking out my really bassy low frequencies and the boomy room sounds in here. I have a de-esser on here for all those T's and S's. It's really dropping them down, make it a little bit less painful, I guess, to listen to. And then we got a compressor that's working not super hard. It's only compressing when I start speaking louder like that. But I'm using this to gain my voice up a little bit because I'm keeping the mic a little bit further away from me. So inside of this, what I'm going to do is apply a gate. Now let's just use Pro Tools stock standard plugins to give you a feeling of this. The Dyne 3 expander gate here. Boom. Ooh. Get it so that you can actually hear me. Cool. Okay, so a couple of settings. It's a little bit choppy at the moment. Chop in, like that. So what I'm getting, that hum and noise that's coming up in behind, I can make it drop off a little bit more dramatically. I can make it go purely silent, drop to absolutely nothing, or I can bring it up and you can hear that that hiss is back now, but it drops down in volume based on my range. So this starts to even things out a little bit for us. I'm going to give it a little bit of a hold time so that when I stop speaking, it just fades down a little bit more, and I can bring that release time up a little bit to compensate. So I think that should be fine for us. If it starts sounding weird, I'll come back to it and tweak it. That's definitely dropping down that weird background sound in between. Cool. So, a couple of little tweaks just to make it pick up my voice a little bit more clearly and every time I speak. And if I bring this threshold up, it means that I have to speak louder into it for it to get over that threshold. And then it drops away. So, let's roll with that and see how it works. Cool. I'm just going to hide this again so that we're off in the background. Now, for these, let's kind of work through them because each one is going to need some different processing. Now, I have some plugins that are on saved on this computer that I don't actually have access to anymore. So when I load up my plugin list, it's going to show us a massive range of plugins. I don't actually have access to all of them. I'm going to try and keep it as stock standard as I can, but there definitely are some plugins I'm going to use that are purchased ones because they do a better job. But we'll start with all the basic processing. So if we have a look at this distant bedroom, let's check out this one and remind ourselves of it. I'm going to just go into slip mode as well. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Cool. Okay, so we got some sound in there. I'm also just going to go back to my voiceover track because I realized that threshold is a little too high. So drop that back down a bit so I don't need to speak as loudly the whole time. There we go. That seems a bit nicer. Okay, so with this distant bedroom, first thing is it sounds kind of far away. Hey, here's a test recording of me. So let's fix that. A couple of fixes we can do really quickly is I'm going to throw on an EQ. In this EQ, I'm going to just try and clean it up a little bit. I'm going to loop a section. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. A good jingle of my dog. Here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters. Cool, so the further we go up, the more filtered and weird it's going to sound. So we're looking for that sweet spot where we're taking out any extra bass that doesn't actually exist within the voice and just eliminating those sounds that really aren't important and don't exist in our sound source. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Okay, cool. Now what we're going to do is look for problem frequencies. So I'm going to bring up, normally they exist down in this bottom mid bassy range. Also my computer's being real slow. I'm going to get rid of these images now that you have a basic idea and hopefully speed it up a little bit. Cool. Okay, so let's have a look here. We've got our EQ plugin. Within my EQ plugin here, I'm going to sweep for some just not so pretty frequencies and we're going to try and see where they live. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording. So it's a bit weird and boxy and gross in this area, so let's see what this is like. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Okay, now constantly we want to be A-Bing back and forward to make sure that any of these edits we're doing are actually making a positive difference. So let's bypass it on and off. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. It's making a little bit of improvement. We could probably go a little bit deeper with that. And let's find the sweet spot. Let's find where this voice is popping out. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about. Okay, it's definitely clearer. There's still some noise in the background that's not really ideal, so let's have a little bit of a look at that. As we're processing this, we are going to want to probably compress it and make it louder and clearer. But we also are probably going to find that there's some background ambient noise and that type of stuff. Now we do have some plugins here for denoising, but we're going to see what we can do first without any of them. So we are going to use a expander gate. See if this can try and drop down our background sounds a little bit. Let's have a look. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. So the issue here is every time that that voice is speaking and going over the threshold, as I'm sure you can hear with my voice as I constantly speak right now, there's this background hum that's sitting in there because once my voice goes over and opens that gate, it's open for all sounds. And then when I stop, it all disappears, which is really great. But that can be a problem when we're working with vocal recordings. This will do well to maybe push some of those softer, annoying background sounds down a little bit, but it's not going to fix everything. So it's not going to reduce it if there is noise in the middle of this whole word that we're working on. This is where our denoising plugins do all of that really nicely. We're going to add a compressor and we're going to keep going, and then we'll come back and have a look at what our denoising plugins can do for these. I'm going to use the, again, stock standard Pro Tools compressor in here. Now remember, our job with our compressor is to take the tops of these waveforms and bring them down to match the quieter sections for our waveforms. So our compressor, a lot of people are like, it makes things louder. Yeah, it does, but it does through the process of us turning the loud parts down so that everything is even, and then turning the whole sound up after the fact. So all those quiet sounds get louder, and therefore we feel like the whole track is louder, even though we're just bringing it back to its original volume, or you should just be bringing it back to its original volume in most cases, unless it's like my weird voiceover thing here where we're trying to get some extra level out of it. So, looking at this recording, what I can see in here is we have some quieter words like these ones, and then we have some louder words like these ones. Let's find one where we have a quiet word and a relatively loud word in short succession. So let's loop this little part. Also, get used to listening to my voice all day today. Hey, here's a test. Hey, here's a test. Hey, here's a test. Hey, here's a. Okay, so what we can see if we're looking at this graph here, we have the hey as this first word going well over our threshold. And then the other ones, the peak is represented by the little red dot. And we can see it actually starting to sit down lower. So let's look at this little graph while listening to this little sample again. Hey, here's a test. Hey, here's a test. Hey, here's a test. Cool. So we can see through this right now that we have one big word going over and the others are just sitting just kind of at or underneath our threshold. That's great. Our threshold is pretty much in the right spot already. This word right here, I don't want to turn down anymore. It's already quiet. So let's loop just that one word and see where it's sitting. Tester, 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 tester. Cool. I'm not compressing it. I don't want to make it quieter. So that's great. Now what we need to play with is the settings for a vocal. If I think about normal speech, and specifically my speech, I jump into words quite quickly. So we need to make sure that as soon as I start speaking, this compressor's attack is quite short, so it's going to grab it straight away. For certain genres of music production, maybe you want a slightly longer attack so that the first little section of the word pops out over the top of the rest of your mix. Can be really useful. For something like a podcast, you got to judge it case by case, but pretty heavy compression is not a bad thing in this case. My release time needs to be about as long as a word is. So what I can look at over here is I have my gain reduction meter. This word over here, we know this whole word, even though it's like, hey, there's like, hey, are two sections of that word. I want to make sure that it's not doing each of them separately, that it's processing a word as a whole word. So let's have a look at how this gain reduction meter was working, where the settings were at about 80 milliseconds over here. Hey, 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 hey. See how it's pumping twice? Hey! I don't want it to do that. I want it to hold the whole thing. So let's increase our release time so that it's grabbing onto it for a little bit longer. Hey, 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 hey. You can see it's starting to smooth out a little bit. Let's have a bit of a longer sample size. Hey, here's a test. Okay, starting to work. The other thing is this graphic is not responding as quickly as it should be, but either way, slow computer. With my ratios, normally for vocals, I sit somewhere between 4:1 to 6:1. It really depends how dynamic the vocal is. This one down here gets a little bit crazy in sections, so I may need to work with it harder, or they may just be plosives with the P's and B's that we need to remove out of it. So I'm going to set it around about 5:1 to start. And then my makeup gain here is just how much I turn it up to return the loud parts back to their original volume. So let's look at how much gain reduction is being applied here. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my... So if I turn it up, it's peaking down here at around about -12, which means that it's taking 12 dBs off this guy. So that means that if I add 12 dBs, all of this stuff that's all quiet is going to get extended out to the loudest part of this waveform, which means if we zoom in a little bit so we can see it a bit clearer, all these little words are going to get boosted so that they're as big as this one right here. Sometimes we want to do that, right? But if I add some makeup gain, you'll see the whole thing gets much louder real quick. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me, sitting inside a room in an open house with no consideration for soundproofing or reducing outside noise at all. Okay, so now we can hear these quiet parts a lot clearer. And what I'm hearing is this gate is really choppy with the amount of background noise that there is. If I have a really clean recording, maybe this gate's going to work really nicely. But at the moment, because that background hiss sound pops back in so constantly, I'm hearing it turn on and off, which is a bit gross. So I'm going to turn that off just so we can hear it. Even though we know we will have boosted and turned up all this background noise, let's listen to it and hear what it sounds like. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me, sitting inside a room in an open house with no consideration for soundproofing or... Okay, it's a bit better, right? The other part of this now is we can only go so far for this specific recording because there is so much background noise living in here without using some good plugins. So let's open up a noise reduction plugin. For example, let's use the dialogue denoise. If you have access to the iZotope plugins, and again, this will probably wig out. Hey, there we go. Okay, so this is the dialogue denoising plugin. iZotope have a range of denoising plugins. Cool thing about this one is it does a pretty good job automatically, and it's in auto mode at the moment, which means when I turn it on, you'll see this graphic EQ starting to kind of move all around the place as it's trying to find the noise profile for both your vocal and the noise in the background. So let's play it in auto mode and see what it does. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about... Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about... Hey, here's a test recording... So we can hear it's automatically taking a whole heap of this background noise down, right? It's doing a pretty good job, but I know that it can do better. So if we look at our recording, I can see there's these like quiet bits in between. There's a little bit here, there's a little bits in here. Now some of this will include like weird lip smacks and breaths and all kinds of other stuff in here, but let's highlight a little bit to see what it sounds like without this one. Breath, that's a breath that's breathing in. Let's try this one. That right there is a very short sample, right? It's about a quarter of a second, but that little sample is all that we need to get this plugin to analyze what frequencies are living down here. So if I go into manual mode, I can put it in learn mode, and what this does now is when I play a piece of audio back through it, even this short, it now analyzes the EQ profile of that noise. So now if we play it back, hey, here's a test recording of me. It has an idea of the curve. Now, we can play with how much we want it to reduce it, right? So if we just do one word here, hey, 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 hey. Now right here, to get the best sound, I've gone the whole way on this. When you're pushing denoising plugins really hard, a lot of the time you may end up with weird, glitchy, very electronic sounding artifacts in the real vocal recording or guitar or whatever it is that you're recording. Let's just play this back to see whether there are weird sounds in this. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me, sitting inside a room in an open house with no consideration for soundproofing or reducing outside noise at all. Look, it's doing a pretty good job. I can also play around with putting it after my compressor to try and see if that helps with the analysis of it at all. So let's play that back and have a look. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone. It's very slow right now. Here's a test recording of me with my phone. Definitely a little bit better behind. Now this one's only going so far with it, but we also have, if you have access to the RX just straight up spectral denoiser rather than the dialogue denoiser, it is a much heavier beast of a machine and it does a really, really good job. So I would recommend using that one over this one for most, whether it is dialogue you're working on. This is a plugin that's included in the music production bundle that they make. But if you're at uni or something like that, you will find that these iZotope plugins are more accessible in educational environments. But if you got some money to spend, highly recommend them. I have them on my other computer, just not on this one I record on. So, look, we've done a little bit of cleaning up. Let's have a quick side-by-side comparison. I'm going to play this sample back with our processing on it, and then I'm going to bypass our plugin so that we can see it back to front. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Hey, here's a test recording of me with my phone about 30 centimeters away from me. Cool, we've definitely tried to make it clearer, we've reduced some of the noise, maybe we're processing a little bit hard with this denoiser, I could probably take that back a little bit, but we've made some improvements, right? Now this basic process of EQing, gating, and compressing is generally going to get you a pretty solid way. What we're also looking at in here is then the additional options that we have. So if you have extra plugins, you have extra tools, use them, right? So let's go down to the closed bedroom, or the close bedroom. So we've got the same environment, but we have something where we're a lot closer to that microphone. Let's try and kind of speed this process up, right? We've got to have recording here. Let's listen to it and I'll start adding some plugins. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before, inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters away from my phone microphone. Okay, so this one for sure sounds way clearer because why? Our vocal is so much louder than our background room noise that we're getting an even sound. Now, the other thing with this is I recorded straight into an iPhone, and the iPhone is applying some level of compression processing to the sound anyway, and it's kind of an automatically EQ'd microphone to make it sound clearer for voice anyway. So it's not a perfect situation, right? But we're working in this world where a lot of people are isolated at the moment, and I'm trying to look at the techniques that you might be using from home if you don't have any proper audio setup. So let's have a little bit of a look. I'm going to try and clean this up with some EQ. Let's go. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before, inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters away from my phone microphone. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters away from my phone microphone. Okay, so even with just EQ and whatever the generic settings have done to processing this with the compressor, we're kind of already there. Just having that closer distance on the microphone has made a massive difference. There are some plosive sounds coming through which are not ideal, but we will have a look at them to see if we can reduce them in with some physical editing. There are also some additional plugins you can get which are like plosive removers, breath removers, a whole heap of these types of things. They're also fantastic. We're trying to just keep it as simple as possible here. So let's have a quick look with this compressor and see what it's doing. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before, inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters away from my phone microphone. Okay, so in here there's some jingles. A, half of that is probably my dog. The other half is B, the earrings that I'm wearing today. This is a really good thing to be aware of. If your artist or person that you're interviewing has got dangly jewelry on or something that's going to make noise, ask them politely to get rid of it, because you don't want this shit in your recording, right? And I've kind of kept that in there deliberately so that you can hear it and be like, what the fuck is that background noise? Yeah, something as simple as earrings, right? So be aware of that, because it's only going to get louder when you compress it. So let's have a look at this now with just our baseline EQ and compression. Here's a recording inside of my same space as before, inside my house. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about... So hear this little crunchy sound in here. I'm just going to zoom this down so that you can see it. It's probably that guy. Mouth about... right there. So look, with these recordings, a couple of things that you can do. One, we could just try and take it out. We can see what it sounds like. If I just cut it out in slip mode, we're going to have a part of digital silence, which is not good. But, so you can hear it, this is what it sounds like. Mouth about... Ooh, not great. The other option is we could try shuffle mode, and if we're in shuffle mode and I delete this, it'll bump that back audio file down closer and touch my original file. So let's see what happens if we shorten the distance in between the words. Mouth about... Ooh, also not good, because we're adding this, well, we're taking away this breath of air in the middle there, which gives us this dead kind of sound to it. What I could do is I could also just take out these background parts, but then I'm in slip mode. Sorry, I just got the hiccups. I could paste some silence from the track in here. We can see what that sounds like. Mouth about 5 centimeters away. That starts to sound a little bit clearer. So let's listen to this in context. But with my mouth about... yeah, I mean, it's still a little bit choppy, but if we add some fades to it... Mouth about... That's definitely better, right? It's smoother. We don't have a dead silence. We haven't changed the timing of it. We've just added something. And this is me doing it in a real sloppy kind of lazy way, right? We can zoom through and we can try and visually just look for other plosives. Look like there's some funky stuff going on in this word. No consideration for soundproofing, but with my mouth about 5 centimeters. 5 centimeters. 5. Actually say the word again. Let's try the same concept, right? Take some silence, put it in here, see what it sounds like. 5 centimeters away. Oh my god, baseline editing. That's sounding so much clearer. I'm just hitting F, and also you can see my shortcuts popping up down the bottom and down here. Forgot to mention that before. It is away from my phone microphone. Microphone. Phone in here is a little bit rough. Phone. Not a massive amount that I can actually do about that one. If it was really loud and really frustrating, I could potentially break it out and I could bring that clip down in level, or I could apply some level of automation where I could dip that word down a little bit so that it doesn't pop out as much if this is a really heavy word of plosive. Phone microphone. But at the moment this is not really necessary. So get rid of them. leave that file as it was. Let's hear this without this processor.
Inside of my same space as before, inside my house, no consideration for sound.
It's real basic cleanup. That's what we're doing here. Cool, let's have a look at the next one because this recording is pretty solid, just as it stood. Closed bathroom. Oi, this is going to be a rough one.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with...
Gross. The amount of weird reverb going on in there is not good. So let's have a little look. I'm going to pull up a plugin here. We're going to roll out some bass because we know there's bass in here we don't need. Then we're going to scoop through and try and find where these weird resonant sounds from this bathroom are. So we're going to do that in a second.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone.
Okay, so we're getting rid of some bass. Now we're going to make this one a little bit more fine. We're going to reduce the Q size, or the width of your EQ band. And let's have a look.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with tiles, mirrors, and glass reflecting the sound.
Oh my god, this whole area is gross. So, let's see what happens if we just widen this out to try and cut out as much of this subby bass weird roominess as we can. Let's see what this sounds like.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with tiles, mirrors, and glass reflecting the sound.
Look, that's definitely better. Let's see if we can find a nice sweet spot for the voice in here as well. Sweep around for it.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with...
Okay, so we've got there's one tiny little nice bit down here around about the 3.5 mark, which is not a surprise because that's the frequency our human ears hear louder than anything else. There was this also kind of nice sparkly sound sitting up at around this area in the 5 kilohertz region. So let's have a quick listen to that.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and fully...
Now let's bypass it on and off so we can hear this. With it.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening.
Now there's definitely a little bit of a ring on there. If I was going to try and reduce this completely, I may need to add like another EQ layer in here as well. And I might need to like just make tiny, super fine little notches and find specific frequencies. You can do that. Realistically, I'm pretty happy with this. If we copy paste one of our compressors, just because we're lazy. Let's have a look at this.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with tiles, mirrors, and glass reflecting the sound.
Look, it's not the worst. I'm going to make that active. Let's see what
Here's
it sounds
a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening.
Now you can also hear, because we brought up those quiet frequencies, or just the quiet volume sounds, we can hear more of that ringing coming back. So I'm just going to copy paste that first plugin. Let's see how intense this sounds.
Here's a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening, and a fully reflective environment with tiles, mirrors, and glass reflecting the sound.
cool. I just tweaked that second one just to take out some of those boosts and just open it up a little bit more so it's not quite as intense as what's going on here. But I think that sounds way
Here's
better.
a recording in my closed bathroom, about 10 centimeters away from the microphone, with no external sound, but also no dampening.
Look, not bad. I've heard way worse podcasts than that. Cool. Let's have a look at our inside of our closet.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have
like a weird snort sound in here.
a closet, but
okay, so let's delete that one to start.
a closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
It feels real weird. Let's copy paste that first plugin again, because we know we're going to roll out probably that level of bass.
A closet, but
we need to find what these gross frequencies are so we know what we're actually working with. So let's have a sweep around, find what they are.
A closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
It's more in this upper mid range up in here. Let's try and dip this out a little bit, see what it sounds like.
The closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Going real heavy with this one, see what we can do.
The closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Okay, it's starting to get a little bit better again with this weird bit that I've chopped out. Let me just go back in and paste something in here so that let's paste something in here so that we don't have this dead digital silence. Ugh, you make me loop it. Maybe. Drag it down, drag it down. Yeah, that's okay. End that word. Fade. Let's listen to it.
It's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind.
Okay, not too bad. Again, I'm going to straight up copy and paste that compressor down here, get it a bit louder.
Much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside.
Now again, I think we need to do the same thing, double dip the processing, get a little bit more heavy. Let's have a look.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Okay, it's sounding a little bit more hollow now. We don't have this bass and kind of low frequency quality to it. So I'm going to see if there's some level of bass frequencies here that are not too boomy, that I can give a little bit more life to.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different.
There's all these weird mouth sounds in here as well. Let's see in my noise reduction plugins. We got breath control, we got clicks, weird other stuff. It's not really clicks, it's more breath control. Let's see what this guy does. Again, iZotope plugin. It's going to work a little bit harder. This is also the older version of it, but let's have a look.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Okay, so see this little line up the top here? What this is doing is it's showing you what it's actually taking away from the recording. So at the moment it's silence. Let's play it again.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Okay, so what it's doing is it's all those little it's weird that gate on doesn't work very well. But what it's doing is it's taking out all that background junk. So here's our sample.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet.
And now let's do it A-Bing back and forth with these processors on and off.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of vocal, and it feels different with my head inside this space speaking.
Okay, so it's taking a lot of sound out. We're giving it back that volume at the end so it doesn't sound super weak.
This is about 10 centimeters away from my phone, inside of my closet. Not a lot of soft dampening as it's a timber closet, but we have a much clearer, direct kind of.
So we've essentially changed the tone of it a fair chunk. We haven't necessarily made it a better recording because it wasn't a great recording to start with, but we've done something to it, right? Let's have a look at this next one so that this tutorial doesn't go for 3 hours. Moving on.
Here's the microphone. This is about 10 centimeters away.
Let's not solo isolate that track.
Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is damp.
This one's pretty good, right? It's the same as our close bedroom one. I'm going to copy paste my EQ down here because I'm going to assume it's going to be relatively similar. Let's have a little listen.
Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is dampened by my mattress and my quilt on top of it. I've also closed the windows so that there is less reflective.
Okay, so there's some pops, some plosives, some bleh in there. Let's grab our compressor so that we can even this level out a little bit because we've got these big plosives in here.
Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is dampened by my mattress and my quilt on top of it.
So for this one, I was pretty much speaking straight into the diaphragm of the microphone, like speaking into the end of my phone, and therefore you get these weird pops and these gross things happening. So let's have a look at this.
My quilt on top of it.
That one. Not happy. Look at that waveform. It's gross. Okay, so this waveform, let's have a look at what happens if we delete it. Again, let's swap to shuffle mode so we can do this. Let's have a look.
Quilt on top of it.
Okay, so it's not a terrible edit. It does kind of even it out. If I fade it back in, it may bring some of that original sound back in, so we got to be careful with that.
Quilt on top of it.
This is also just a fraction of a word, so let's take this out and see if it evens it out a little bit. Oh, let's not do clip gain.
Of it.
Okay, so it's a little bit more intense with this one. I can drag it down a little bit and try and take more of the start of that word, but the more I take, the more I'm taking from the original performance, the more out of time the rest of it's going to be. Not an issue for a podcast, but is an issue if this is a musical performance. It's not good.
My mattress and my quilt on top of it.
Look, that actually works quite well. If you have to go through and edit out every plosive though, and you record a 40-minute podcast, these pieces of audio are at max 19 seconds long. Good luck. You're going to be here for a real long time. The best thing to do is get something to reduce those plosives. You could literally like put your phone inside of a sock so that your sock is acting as a little pop filter for it. Right now, I don't have a pop filter, which is also why my voice is a little bit weird, because what I've had to do is I just put a little cloth over the top of my microphone. But if I'm looking at it right now and speaking into it, you can hear the microphone kind of resonating because it was $40 off Wish. But it's still fine, right? It's working pretty well. Let's have a listen to this recording on and off with our processing.
Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is dampened by my mattress and...
It's okay. It's not great. If I was going to do that little bit more noise reduction, I would probably grab one of these denoising plugins. Give it the second it needs to load. Unbypass it, we zoom in, we look at a little dead part of audio, like maybe one of these bits. It's a breath. Maybe this bit. Background noise, we're going to say learn. It gets used to that as a weird noise profile. We say, yep, great job iZotope, you know what you're doing now. Now we say play.
Here's the microphone laying on my bed with me laying close to it so that my voice is dampened by my mattress and my quilt on top of it. I've also closed the windows so that there is less reflective sound inside this space.
Oh, so nice. It's worked really well on that track. Great. Now, the big one, the outside broadcast. These are always a pain in the ass.
Here's me standing outside.
Hear that background noise. That is exactly what these plugins are designed for. Let's look at this. That is weird background. A bit of a weird breath in there as well, but let's drag this plugin down. Pretty surprised we haven't got any CPU errors yet. I'm gonna say learn. Gonna learn this profile. It knows it. Great. Yep, you know what we did? We edited it on the wrong one. Haha. Let's swap our plugin like an idiot. Okay. Learn. Play. Great. Did it. Oh my goodness, listen to that go. Now if I crush this, that background noise is gone, right? But what artifacts is this leaving in our recording? That's what we got to find out. So let's check.
Here's me standing outside in my backyard, about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze, there's some plants moving. I can hear some construction in the background. Definitely some stuff that would need cleaning up.
Okay, it's definitely cleaner. We don't hear any of that background noise, birds, different wind sounds. But our voice is starting to sound a little bit washy. It's like we've almost got a bit of a phaser or something going on in our voice. So let's just try and dampen these settings down a little bit. Maybe it's not perfect, maybe there's some background noise, but does it sound more natural?
Here's me standing outside in my backyard, about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze, there's some plants moving. I can hear some construction in the background.
Definitely starts to sound a little bit less artificial with just a tiny couple of tweaks. Now, yes, we can hear some more wind in here, which is not ideal, but let's hear it with and without again.
Here's me standing outside in my backyard, about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze.
Oh my god, it's getting rid of all those wind sounds, right? It's really, really good. Cool. So I'm going to grab a generic EQ. We've said generic EQ. We're going to do pretty much what we've done for every other track. Play it back.
Here's me standing outside in my backyard, about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze. There's some plants moving. I can hear some construction in the background. Definitely some stuff that would need cleaning up.
Okay, so let's just remind ourselves, this is our original.
Here's me standing outside in my backyard, about 10 centimeters away from my microphone. There's a bit of a breeze. There's some plants moving.
Not bad, right? Now, we have sounds in here we can't get rid of. We have a couple of plosives from wind. This was my phone standing out in there. If I had have had some sort of windbreaker on it or put a sock on my phone, it would have been fine. Also, there's my jingle of my earrings, my dog's dog tag, all stuff that I should have been aware of, that I was very aware of when we were recording, right? So this is stuff for your productions that you want to get rid of that shit. You don't want that. So this process, right, the only external plugins that we've looked at are a couple of voice related or noise related as well. iZotope plugins, you can get similar versions from Waves, you can get other different brands. I have iZotope plugins because I like them, but otherwise you pick what you want. You can see that you can get a good chunk of the way there with a gate, with a compressor, with some EQ, maybe double dipped EQ in certain situations to get a little bit more processing and bang for your buck. But if you have the money to be able to do it, these iZotope plugins, this one here and our Nectar breath control, they're really useful plugins to try and use. So have a think about what is going to be necessary for your ongoing personal productions and whether it's worth you sinking your money into it. But this is my process for cleaning up these vocals. Cool. Basic kind of stuff, right? If you're working in Zoom recordings as well and you're recording Zoom conversations, the one other tip that I would give you is this process that we did down here and up here for removing those plosives. Sometimes you get a word that's stretched out because of an internet glitch where it's like, and then I did this, and it's like a kind of artificial sound. You can use the same process. You can jump in, find those sections of words and chop them down so that they don't extend out. It's a little bit monotonous, but can be really good, and you can make it sound just like brand new. So have a think about ways for your recordings as we're working from home these days and seeing how things will work. But these are just some tips and tricks for cleaning up some vocal recordings that you may have done on a phone within Pro Tools. So good luck.